Welcome to The Last Boot, the channel where football is more than a game. It is passion. It is pain. It is glory. It is heartbreak. We tell the stories behind the moments that shook the world. The tears. The triumphs. The players who gave everything. And the ones who lost it all. I am so glad you are here today. If you are new here, please subscribe and join the Last Boot family. We are growing every single day and I do not want you to miss a single story. Today we are talking about the boy who was born with nothing. Who grew up with nothing. Who had no boots. No ball. No future. And yet became the greatest footballer the world has ever seen. The one and only Pelé. Let us find out. There is a place in Brazil called Três Corações. It means three hearts. And it is here that on the 23rd of October 1940 a boy was born who would one day make the entire world feel every single one of those three hearts beating at once. His name was Edson Arantes do Nascimento. But the world would come to know him by one name. One word. One legend. Pelé. His father was a footballer. A good one. But not good enough to escape poverty. The family had no money. No comfort. No certainty about tomorrow. They lived in a small house with cracked walls and an uncertain future. Young Edson watched his father play and felt something catch fire inside him. A dream so big it had no right to exist in a life so small. But there was one problem. They could not afford a football. So the boy did what poor children do when the world says no. He found a way. He stuffed a sock with rags and newspapers and tied it up with string. And in the dusty streets of Bauru where his family moved he kicked that makeshift ball for hours. Days. Months. Years. While other children slept he practiced. While other children played he perfected. He shined shoes on the street corners to earn a few coins. He carried bags at the railway station. He did whatever it took to survive. And every single day he came back to that street. To that sock. To that dream. His father called him Dico. But a school friend started calling him Pelé. Nobody knows exactly why. Some say it came from a local goalkeeper whose name sounded like that. Young Edson hated the nickname at first. He got into fights over it. Got suspended from school because of it. But names have a way of finding their destiny. And that name was about to conquer the world. At the age of 11 a man named Waldemar de Brito discovered him playing in the streets. Waldemar was a former Brazilian international. He had seen footballers all his life. But he had never seen anything like this boy. He took Pelé under his wing and trained him. Shaped him. Believed in him when the world had not yet noticed him. And when Pelé was just 15 years old Waldemar took him to Santos Football Club and told the directors something that must have sounded like madness. He told them that this boy would one day be the greatest footballer in the world. Santos signed him. And the world would never be the same. Within a year Pelé was the top scorer in the entire Brazilian league. He was 16 years old. 16. While most boys his age were worried about school and friendships, Pelé was already carrying the hopes of an entire nation on his teenage shoulders. Then came 1958. The World Cup in Sweden. Brazil had never won it before. The weight of a country's longing traveled with that squad across the Atlantic. and Brazil's coach Vicente Fiala had a decision to make. Should he pick a 17-year-old boy who had never played in a World Cup before? A teenager from the streets of Bauru. A boy who still had the face of a child. He picked him. And Pelé walked onto that World Cup stage and did something nobody had ever done before or since. He became the youngest player ever to play in a World Cup final. The youngest player ever to score in a World Cup final. And the youngest ever World Cup winner in history. He was 17 years and 249 days old. When that final whistle blew in Stockholm and Brazil had beaten Sweden 5-2, Pelé collapsed on the pitch. He wept like a child. Because he was still a child. His teammates had to hold him up. Veterans of the game. Grown men. Hardened by years of football. Holding up this teenage boy who was shaking with tears and joy and disbelief. The images of that moment went around the world. And everyone who saw them felt something crack open inside their chest. This was not just football. This was a human being discovering in real time that his impossible dream had come true. But that was only the beginning. Over the next 2 decades, Pelé would go on to redefine what a human being could do with a football. He was not just fast. He was not just strong. He was not just skillful. He was all of those things at once in a way that seemed to belong to a different species. He could score with his left foot. His right foot. His head. He could see passes that nobody else could see. He could control a ball as if it were attached to him by an invisible thread. He played the game as if he had invented it himself and was showing everyone else how it was meant to be done. The numbers are almost impossible to believe. Over 1,000 career goals. 3 World Cup winner medals in 1958, 1962 and 1970. 6 Brazilian national championships with Santos. Multiple South American titles. And performances so breathtaking that even opposing fans would stand and applaud him. There is a story from 1967 that tells you everything you need to know about who Pelé was. Nigeria was in the middle of a brutal civil war. The conflict had torn the country apart. People were dying. Families were broken. And yet when Santos toured Africa and came to play in Nigeria, both sides of the war agreed to a 48-hour ceasefire. Not for a peace negotiation. Not for a political agreement. But so that both sides could watch Pelé play football. A ceasefire. For football. For one man. That is not a statistic. That is not a record. That is something that exists beyond the boundaries of sport entirely. In 1970, Brazil came to the World Cup in Mexico with what many still believe was the greatest team ever assembled. And Pelé was their heartbeat. Brazil played football that year that made people question whether what they were watching was real. They moved with a grace and a joy that seemed almost supernatural. And at the center of all of it was this man. Now 29 years old. No longer a teenager crying on a pitch in Stockholm. But a king in full command of his kingdom. Brazil won that World Cup without losing a single game. And Pelé lifted that golden trophy for the 3rd time. Only man in history to do so. 3 World Cups. 3 times a champion of the world. When he retired from international football, the Brazilian government declared him an official national treasure. Not a metaphor. An actual legal declaration. So that he could not be transferred to a foreign club without the government's approval. A human being declared a national treasure. Let that sink in for a moment. And yet behind all the glory there was a man who never forgot where he came from. A man who remembered the cracked walls of that small house. The sock stuffed with rags. The dusty streets of Bauru. He used his fame and his voice to speak about poverty and inequality in Brazil. He worked with UNICEF for decades advocating for children living in the conditions he himself had escaped. He never pretended the struggle did not exist. He carried it with him always. In his later years, Pelé's health declined slowly and painfully. He battled cancer with the same quiet dignity he had brought to everything in his life. He did not hide. He did not despair publicly. He continued to speak with warmth and grace about football and about life and about love. His final public appearances were gentle and moving. A great man growing old. But still a king. On the 29th of December 2022, Edson Arantes do Nascimento passed away at the age of 82 in São Paulo, Brazil. The world stopped. Flags flew at half-mast. Football grounds across the planet fell silent. World leaders and football legends alike spoke of losing someone irreplaceable. Someone who had not just played the game but had given it a soul. Brazil wept. The world wept, because Pelé was not just a footballer. He was proof. Proof that a boy born with nothing in a cracked house in a small town with no boots and no ball could become the greatest of all time. Proof that talent and hunger and love for something bigger than yourself can carry you to places that defy all logic and all expectation. He was the boy from poverty who became the king. And there will never be another one like him. That is it for today's story on The Last Boot. If this video moved you, please give it a big thumbs up. Share this with every football fan you know. Hit subscribe and join the Last Boot family. Drop your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video. Until then, keep the passion alive. You are a true fan.